caves, turning the Mississippi River into the Nile of the Americas.
And in fact, the indigenous people themselves are now African. That's why when a European came here, you call the indigenous people the red man. You don't get to be red without some brown and black.
Now, some of you might find it offensive when people call Indians red, and you should be offended because what you should be calling them is black. Because the many nations of Plains Indians from all across the Americas are involved in an ongoing conspiracy to deny their black history and their true black heritage. But it ain't just about heritage, it's about events, historic events, the actions of people throughout human history that determined the path of mankind itself. And this is not just about ancient history, this is about events that took place as recent as only 70 years ago.
Antarctica was actually mapped by a Moor. And most people don't know it was mapped by a Moor. And they have old topographical evidence of old maps of Antarctica. That's why the Nazis fled there.
The Nazis fled to Antarctica. The Nazis live in Antarctica under the ice, and black people helped them get there. And in the end, I have to say that it is indeed a great thing that the black nationalists of America, the Black Lives Matter and other movements have this great scholar of history spearheading their movement and giving them all the credibility and seriousness that they truly deserve.
Wash your ass!
But can you easily name just a few contributions black people have made to our country? Probably not.
It's that time of year again. It is officially February, the shortest month of the year, and I can think of no better time than now to honor Black history. Now I'm sure you white devils, you pale-faced demons that are listening, are used to the lies and the propaganda that is spread on this most sacred and holy of months. But it is my duty, it is the job I have set forward for myself to expose you to the real history of the superior black race. You need to learn the truth, and I'm here to help facilitate that. We're not going to cover the whitewashing of history, the civil rights movement, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr. Get that white propaganda out of here. We're going to be dealing with the truth, the real history of the world, the history that has been kept locked away and hidden from you for far too long. You need to know. And I need to get the word out there. But before we get going, I need to unburden myself. The guilt is killing me. I can't live with the lies and the deception anymore. This image was not drawn by my girlfriend Jade. It's a lie. It's part of my white supremacy to cover up the truth. It has been painted over, much like world history. This image was originally drawn by a strong Nigerian artist named Ubangu Atani. And I need you to see the truth because I can't live with it anymore. You know what they say, the first step is always the hardest. Physician, heal thyself. So let me heal myself now by showing you the truth. Much better. So let's start our journey of discovery with one of the bigger cover-ups over the last few millennia. I'm talking about Jews. Now, most people think they know what a Jew is. They would be wrong. That is not a Jewish person. That is an imposter. That is somebody who is trying to actively deceive you. The real Jews are the black Israelites.
Black people are born Jews.
I'm Jewish. What is
No, you're not. Italo Yehudi. He loved Jacob. Who's Jacob? The so-called Negro Latinos and Native Americans and the Seminole Indians.
That is some compelling evidence. You heard him. Native Americans, Latinos, and blacks are the real Jews, not those imposters in Israel. Now, the black Israelites are out there preaching their message of tolerance every single day.
Death to all you crackers, man.
That's right.
That's right. Want to back your fucking head, man. Right. And all you so-called white people, you punk faggots, you going into slavery, all right? Right. We're going to destroy you, man. By the way, all you so-called white ones, we're going to get brutally raped out here. Right. That's right. And all you so-called Asians, you're going into slavery, all right?
That's right.
You're going into slavery, all right? Where you belong.
Now, some of you white devils might be having some difficulty understanding this. You might be asking yourselves, where do I fit in? Where is my history in comparison to the true Israelites, the Native Americans, Latinos, and blacks? Well, I'm going to let Mike Tyson explain it for you.
Call him Neanderthal. Yep. You Neanderthal? Because white man, that's all he is. You a caveman, man.
Right.
You a caveman that stole everybody's history, stole everybody's the way of living, and then combined it all together and said it was yours.
And if that wasn't clear enough, I'll let his compatriot expand on it a little bit more.
What says in the scriptures, God do hate.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not the only thing he hates. He hates many things in the scriptures, man.
Yeah.
He hates Esau. Who's the Esau?
He's the progenitor of the so-called white race, man.
Well, there you have it, White Devil. Now we know the true history, that the Jews are really black people. You thought you could pull the wool over their eyes, but they're not having it. All you Neanderthals and cave dwellers are on fucking notice. The real history's getting out. All that fake bullshit in every history book and recorded language. All the passed down tradition. It's all a smokescreen. We know who the real Jews are, and they're not the people inhabiting Israel. Those are the imposters. And how shameful that you would try to take their place and their accomplishments. And the black Israelites are more than willing to spread that message of truth to anybody that would try to impersonate them.
6 million who the Holocaust.
Are you saying the Holocaust is a joke?
It's a joke. That's right. That's right. The Holocaust is a damn joke. The Holocaust is a joke. Hitler, yeah, cry, white boy. Heil Hitler. You ain't been nothing. We've been through it. You ain't been through it. Black people have been through it.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's right.
But the deception, it doesn't just end there. Not only were black people the original Jews, they were also the original Egyptians. Now, I could bore you with highly academic sources going over very persuasive arguments as to how black people were actually the original Egyptians. We could sit here all day and talk about how dark those mummies be and shit, yo, and go over famous pharaohs like Charcoal Hotep, but I think I've got better evidence, more persuasive evidence for you.
I've heard them say that we wasn't even there. Baby, let me make it clear. We were the ones. If you pay attention to what I'm about to show, there's no doubt that you will know. We were the ones. And I'ma show you. Nefertari said she was black because that's the way that my name will show you. Egypt was a black man. King Tut was a black man.
How can you deny that? Just let the beat fill your soul. Can't you feel it? Can't you feel ancient Egypt screaming out at you and saying, hey yo, what's up? You want some fuck, baby? I think I can. I can feel it deep in my bones. Now sure, you could be one of those naysayers and bring up the point of, well wait a minute, if black people were the original Jews and black people were the original Egyptians, does that mean they enslaved themselves? When God said, let my people go, was he saying that to his people? Because apparently that would have to be the case. Something's going on there, but I'm sure it's just my white devil brain trying to break down reality and put up the illusion that we had a hand in crafting the world. Clearly we didn't. Clearly white people have done nothing, and black people are responsible for pretty much everything. And you're gonna see that, because that's what this video is about. Since we're already on the subject of stolen accomplishments and the ancient Egyptians, I'd like to bring up a fact that a lot of white people want to try to deny. It's a truth that they've tried to sweep under the rug of history. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the myth that white people invented rocketry, that white people took us into outer space first. That is an outright fabrication. It is not true at all. The truth is, the ancient Egyptians took us into space first. And we've already established the ancient Egyptians were really black people from Africa. That's right, I'm talking about aeronautical niggas. Look at those hieroglyphs. How can you deny the truth that is before your eyes? That is a UFO designed, built, and flown from Africa. Now, you may not believe me, but there is photographic evidence. If you go to the South African Historical Society archive, you can find this picture. It is Chief Head Scientist Mbana Nwana. He is the man that developed the Egyptian rocketry system. He is the man that brought Africans into outer space before anybody else in the world ever was there. Now, it's important that you acknowledge this accomplishment, because I know a lot of people seem to think, and it's crazy, that Europeans and then Americans developed the space program. That's not true. After all, if you let that lie stand, the next thing you'll be telling me is the Aztecs weren't actually black people either.
The Aztecs were original black Native Americans who lived in central Mexico. Native Indian Americans have been very jealous of the Aztecs and other blacks. Although today many Mexicans like to claim that blacks are trying to steal their history, it's the other way around. The Indian Americans are trying to steal the history of the blacks, such as the Aztecs.
This has to end. White people, you need to stop trying to take credit for the accomplishments of proud black civilizations, whether it's the Jews, the Egyptians, or the Aztecs. Now, I'm not certain what exactly compels you to do this. Maybe it's an inferiority complex. Maybe you've not accomplished anything on your own, and you want to take credit from other people that have. Well, that's just sad. That is really fucking sad, white people, that you would do that, white people. Really fucking sad. Now, you may be saying to yourself, wait a minute, I've been to school, I had to read a history book. How is it that I'm not aware of these things? Well, that's because of the historical revisionism that's taken place ever since the Renaissance.
Right here, you see the front, you see the Archangel Michael in the middle, Jesus Christ right next to the gate. What color is it? It takes it very dark. But in many books after 1453, they're painted white. Why? You had famous iconoclasts, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello, 3 Ninja Turtles. They were hired to paint over these images. When I went to Rome and the Vatican and I saw the Sistine Chapel, he was hired to paint biblical characters, Caucasian men. Why? So that when a lot of people begin to read the history of the Israelites and Jews, they would think that they were Caucasians. Listen to what the Greeks did. Because iconoclasm, great with images, that's nothing new. The Greeks took the records of the Israelites and they painted over them as white men.
Those goddamn Europeans, they just don't ever stop. They constantly take credit where credit's not due. Not only do white people try to take credit for what black people do, they try to impersonate them by painting over their historical portraits. Where does it end? How many historical figures were actually black?
But I just want to show you something that's very interesting in this book, that the original rulers of England and Britain were black.
That's King George of England. A light-skinned black man.
You clearly see the Vikings as black men. Do you see that with your glasses? These are black men. Jesus is a black man. They know that in his hometown.
Beethoven.
Black.
Mozart.
Black.
Henry VIII.
Black.
William Shakespeare.
Undoubtedly black.
My God, does it ever end? You heard the list of famous black men throughout history. Mozart, Beethoven, King George, Henry VIII, the Vikings. You know, the people that they try to claim are Scandinavian? Not at all. The Vikings were black men. Even William Shakespeare was a black man. Which is slightly awkward considering Amelia Bassano was the lady who wrote all of Shakespeare's plays because she was black and they would not publish her work. She died in poverty because she never received a dime for her work. Shakespeare was illiterate and could barely write his own name. I think we've got another one of those Egyptian and Jew situations. If William Shakespeare was black and they published his work, why wouldn't they publish Amelia Bassano's work because she was black? God damn it, this must be another example of white privilege. Look at me trying to analyze history with facts. That is stupid. We don't need facts, we need the truth. And the truth here is, William Shakespeare was a black man who had major success in England writing plays, and at the same time he was also a white man who used the work of a black woman because he was illiterate and couldn't sign his own name. Of course, it's not just the white devil that's doing this, it's the yellow devil as well. Caption this. Japanese couple. The woman on the picture is straight up black woman. For samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood. Japanese proverb. Know thyself. For a samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood. Ancient Japanese saying. 35,000 BC, a group of these African Chinese, later known to us as the Jomon, took this route and entered Japan. They became the first humans to inhabit the Japanese Isles. Chinese people have the Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert features. Even Buddha's involved in this. The original Buddha rocking the hairstyle we call today Bantu knots. Know your hair story. Our people even migrated to Asia. Buddha was not the fat white Asian statues you see today. I hope that you are just drinking this in, because not only have white people stolen all of black people's accomplishments and impersonated them and rewritten history books and redone paintings, all of Japanese and Chinese history is a lie, because Japanese and Chinese people are actually black as well. Everybody is black. South American and Central Americans, they're black. Europeans, black too. Asians, black as well. There is not a single place on Earth that has not covered up the fact that black people are responsible for every single human achievement that has ever happened in human history. Perhaps, though, you need a little bit more convincing. Well, it is Black History Month here in America, so let's talk about American history. Let's talk about the first President of the United States. Now, I know a lot of you, if I asked you, who who was the first president are going to say George Washington, but that is a lie. That is pure white propaganda. No, the first president of the United States was a black man, a Moor. George Washington was not the first president of the United States. He was the 9th. The real first president of the United States was John Hanson, who understood the importance of war and was concerned. He served as president from 1781 to 1782 AD. In fact, he sent 800 pounds of sterling silver by his brother Samuel Hanson to George Washington to provide for the troops with shoes. They tried so hard to cover the true Moorish identity of John Hanson because of his great accomplishments as a leader. Since Euro-Americans have their roots in England, it must be very hard to accept the fact that the true father and founder of their country was in fact a black man. You can pick your job from the floor there, white people. I just dropped a truth bomb on your ass. I've napalmed you with reality. Now I know it must be difficult to accept this new reality, this great truth that's been hidden from you. I'm sure for the longest time you thought the first president of the United States was actually George Washington. You are fucking retarded. It was in fact a black man, and they've been covering that up for far too long. We need to get the word out. Now I'm sure you white supremacist naysayers out there are going to bring up things like, well, wait a minute. The oldest surviving heliographic engraving is from 1825, and the earliest photo we have is actually from 1826. So how could you possibly have a photograph of the first president of the United States when he served from 1781 to 1782? Hell, in your desperate struggle to hold on to your white lies, you might even bring up the fact that John Hanson died in 1783.
Ladies and gentlemen, the globalists are in free fall. They are collapsing. Crony capital, mega corporate compounds that have hijacked much of the planet through corporate fraud and by buying off our politicians are being exposed everywhere. And their projects of global carbon taxes and open borders, destruction of sovereignty, and attacks on families are all going to hell in a handbasket. Now let me show you some of the evidence right here. Again, Trump destroys the carbon tax, pulls out of Paris Climate Accord. Remember that? That's just a few weeks ago. That's what's got them so incredibly upset. They know that this was their plan to exempt certain countries and exempt certain corporations and shut down the West. Brexit. Even though they're fighting it, it doesn't matter because the EU's unelected. It's an unelected board set up as a steel concession in 1947 and then with the Treaty of Rome in 1956, operating by stealth, unelected, unaccountable, and so they can fight it all they want. They've gone from totally arrogant, saying you can't defeat us, 20 years ago saying it didn't exist. Remember the EU didn't exist? When I was first on air 22 years ago, people would say I was insane. There's no such thing as the EU. Kind of like there's no TPP. Remember 5 years ago, there's no TPP? Yeah, and then Trump pulled out of it. Peter Thiel, one of the top visionaries out there, a free market capitalist, made tens of billions of dollars, launched a lot of the modern systems. Trump's election showed the tide is going out on globalization on so many fronts. And not having a global world or a smaller world or a future system. Come on. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their centralized global control, picking winners and losers.
I think the tide on globalization is just going out, and it's going out on all these different dimensions. And so if you have movement of people, I think immigration is getting more restrictive, not just in the U.S. but throughout the Western world. I think movement of trade. I think that's I think there's big headwinds there. Through goods, so movement through people, movement through goods, movement through capital, which is mainly through banks. Banks are going to get more regulated. And then even movement through information, where I think there may be some headwinds for, the internet was designed to survive a nuclear war, but even so, I think there are sort of a lot of regulatory challenges that the Silicon Valley is going to be facing from Western Europe and elsewhere in the years ahead. So I think the tide on globalization it's just going out in a pretty big way. I think the tide on globalization is just
going out in a pretty big way. So there you go. Trump to call for U.S. dominance in global energy production. Russia has been caught secretly betting on Hillary Clinton. I'm about to get to that big, huge head wound to the globalists in a moment. But what do you think it does when he lets our coal come back online, when we've got more coal than anybody else in the world, enough to run the planet for over 1,000 years, and it's totally clean with our scrubbers? What happens when that, oh, that's right, Russia's stock and Russia's funding absolutely plunged, and so did Saudi Arabia. They are in total and complete crisis right now, and the United States is rising. Globalism was supposed to parlay our power out and build a corporate world government based on centralized control, planned austerity, and total control. Not anymore. We reported this at the time. The Pissgate story is a Democratic Party firm with a bunch of Democratic Party operatives connected to Pelosi and connected to, of course, the head of the Hillary campaign at the time, Podesta. And so it's coming out that they're stonewalling the FBI and others on their evidence and where they got it. It's all completely made up. We told you that back at the time. Meanwhile, panic Dems want Russia election hoax dropped, shows it's hurting them in the polls, and there's no evidence. CNN had to retract the big story, and then the whole thing was absolutely, totally fake news. So they don't want to use that term fake news anymore because they're very, very fake news, and they are in total panic mode. Meanwhile, Texas mocks California travel ban, saying no government spending can have anybody from state or local government come to Texas and have it be paid for. Good, we don't want it. We don't care what color you are from California, as long as you're coming here wanting to work and have lower taxes, not be that hellhole of trendies that look like zombies everywhere with a bunch of disgusting, wicked, anti-American Hollywood perched up on top of it like satanic buzzards. So we've got that report up on Infowars.com. Yes, you caught me. I was looking at a cuckoo clock, so I my parents in their house. So, excuse me. You're seeing some of the secret information here, ladies and gentlemen. My parents built kind of a European-style add-on to their house. Continuing, these articles are all up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But the reason I raised this is I shot a video titled that the global elite need to basically, they need to surrender or be destroyed. And that doesn't mean give us all their money and all their power or be destroyed. It means stop trying to create a system where you pick the winners and losers and make people poor so you can control them. And they've all written white papers on this. That's their plan. Quit doing that. Start getting focused in your life on the bigger images and the bigger issues and the things that really matter, and learn how the globalists operate. Don't buy their whole Hollywood fake controlled synthetic system. That's the key here, ladies and gentlemen, is get out of the TV-induced state that they put you in from birth. And if you're going to use smartphones and stuff, actually use them for good to counter this system. Don't just use them to then completely get pulled in to the disinformation. And realize we're beginning to win on every front. Doesn't mean we're offering some utopia at the end of this, but the globalists, the David Rockefellers, the Brzezinskis that all died this year, signified this corporate belief that they could take over the whole planet and rule over everyone and be exempt from the taxes and regulations they put on us. Then they sold the idea through modern environmentalism and carbon taxes that making us poor would be cool. That making us poor would quote, save the earth, when really it's been to secure their total control over society and technology and create a new dark age where they are enlightened, but we are not. So I shot a special report on this that we're going to air here today on the Sunday transmission, 4 to 6 p.m. with Owen Schroyer. Roger Stone's coming up. He's been totally vindicated on the Russia investigation. They've had to retract it, admit Scaramucci and others in the White House weren't connected to the Russians. It's all just made up crap, ladies and gentlemen. Infowars.com/show. Be part of the revolution. Spread those links. Get them out to everybody. Infowars.com/show. And understand, the reason I'm under attack, the reason the globalists are coming after me, the reason they're demonizing us, trying to shut up our funding, editing, the Megyn Kelly interview where it was unrecognizable from reality, is because they're scared of what I'm promoting and what I'm saying. They thought they could set up a private corporate world government above the law and get away with it. They could only do that if we were unaware of it. So for decades they said it didn't exist as they were building it. But now it's been blown up on the launch pad, and now we have a future to build a better world. Infowars.com is where the revolution starts. You taking action is where it finishes.
Hey everybody. Come on over. Time to talk about the end of civilization. I hoped it would never come to this, but apparently it has. So, a lot of you probably are aware that President Trump has been tweeting specifically about the Morning Joe team, Mika and Joe. And this is one thing that the country seems fairly unified about. Both his supporters and his critics alike are saying that this tweeting is bad business. And it's going to hurt the country. In fact, it might even destroy civilization as we know it. And I wanted to tell you how that's going to happen. But first, let me read the tweet. I had it summarized into one of my Twitter followers put it into the form of a presidential poem. So it's summarizing the tweet, but it's got a little bit more entertainment value. So let me read it to you. A presidential poem. Low IQ crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row. They insisted on joining me, but I said no. Now that's what he tweeted, and I think you can see the problem here. And I'll just run through it, the big stuff first. First, there's the impact on the economy. Sure, it doesn't look like it yet. The stock market's still very strong. Consumer confidence is high. Jobs are good, and those sorts of things. But I think you can see that a tweet like this is going to cause people not to invest. So, for example, let's say you were going to dig a new coal mine and hire a bunch of people because the government had removed some regulations. The Trump administration.
My name is not important.
And you're thinking, man, this is looking good. The numbers look good. The spreadsheet looks good. I think I'll invest in another coal mine. And then this freaking tweet comes out, and you're like, oh my God, no way. Who's going to buy coal after this? And so you cancel your plans. And then those people don't have jobs. There's a ripple effect. They can't buy goods. And any economist will tell you that it's just it's just going to build up steam and still fall down the hill. So I think you can see, and I think all of you would agree, that the tweet will, at minimum, is going to destroy the economy. At minimum. The other problem is terrorism. You thought ISIS was defeated, and in fact, you probably saw the news today that Iraq says that the ISIS caliphate is actually destroyed as of today. Now, on the surface, this would look like a good thing, because you've probably been hoping for this day for years. And on the surface, again, it looks like President Trump gave General Mattis, a very capable general, free rein to handle this thing, and it looks like he brought it to, with the help of the allies, of course, to a fairly speedy success point. We're not done, but it looks on the surface like these things are good. But imagine how much faster ISIS could have been defeated if Trump had never tweeted that thing about Morning Joe.
My name is
Because the ISIS fighters who are over there, they're probably under fire. They're ducking down and stuff. And then suddenly they get an alert on their smartphone, and they pull out the phone and they're still shooting, of course. But they're reading the phone, it's like, President Trump tweeted, what? No. Throws down the phone, grabs up 2 guns, rededicates himself to the fight. And now it's a much tougher fight. I mean, how many people died in ISIS territory just because of that? I mean, more than a few, right? I mean, I'm not saying he killed millions, but even one person is too much. You kill one person with a tweet, I don't think you can defend that. That's just immoral. That's sort of Hitler-like behavior, yeah. And that's just 2 things. The economy is destroyed, or will, with that tweet. Certainly, ISIS got a boost from it. And then what about climate change? Think of how many people talked about that tweet. And I don't know about you, but if you hold your hand up like this, on your hand, do that for me. Can you feel it? it's warmer on your hand, isn't it? Right? When you talk, a lot of warmth comes down. Now, I'm not saying that's the cause of climate change. I'm just saying it could be one factor. And if we're this close to the tipping point, that might have put us over the top. Because, you know, you were probably thinking, there are other victims. Climate isn't affected by heat. It's just something you read. That's I think that's short-term thinking. Because look around. How many people have you seen flapping their lips and, you know, there's a butterfly effect there on top of the heat coming out of your mouth. There's a big problem. Now, I think you've seen also that prior to these tweets, world leaders seem to be willing to work with President Trump against all odds. I don't know why they'd be willing to work with the legally elected president of the United States, but apparently they were. You know, their own reasons, I guess. You know, nothing we'll ever understand. But they were probably all happy to do this. Some of them had set up meetings. Some of them that, you know, the Prime Minister of India had actually hugged him, you know, at the Rose Garden. Can you imagine it? Imagine having that same meeting today. Can you even imagine that after that Morning Joe tweet, that the Prime Minister of India would hug President Trump? I can't even, it's hard to even imagine. I can't even put that in my head. It's like, after you see that tweet, stop me if I'm wrong, but he's unhuggable now. And before, if you asked me a week ago, hey Scott, would you be willing to hug President Trump? I'd say, well, you know, I'm not a big hugger. I like hugs. I'm not a big hugger. And honestly, it would be a little awkward because he's big. You know, I'm not big enough. I'd have the same problem with Prime Minister Tony. But I would have said, yeah, you know, if the President of the United States wants to hug me, I'd probably give him a hug. You know? But now, can't even imagine it. Can you imagine it? Like after what we said about Morning Joe for Operation Support and Mika, can you imagine it? So, no, I'm not saying that, you know, 100% of everything is right. For example, just take a. Well, first of all, you know, they're in the cage fight with him, so it's not like he was punching back, but still. It seems just a horrible thing, and I know that it will destroy the world in a number of vague ways that I can't really list. I can't list all the ways it will destroy the world, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Just because I can't think of any scenario, even remotely, how these tweets, given the context of him tweeting like this for the last 2 years, I don't see how this will destroy the world. Exactly. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Because you know why? I feel it in my gut. My brain is not really seeing how this all works. But my stomach, more in the gut area, you know, the intestines, just behind my kidney, there's a really smart part right there. And just under the liver, I've got another smart part. So in my guts, a lot of my guts, and really, if we did a poll of my guts, you find probably the liver, the spleen, and all this, they say the same thing. On this, I think they would be unified. And they would tell you these tweets are bad. Now, you know, granted that there are some advantages, right, to tweets like that. President Trump has told us, on record and publicly, and fairly often, that being unpredictable is an advantage. And this was unpredictable, in a sense, because we're kind of were expecting him to slow down on the provocative tweets like this, weren't you? So it was unpredictable, and he did say being unpredictable is good, and experts say it too, and he's been consistent about that, and we have seen it work. But that's not good enough reason to destroy something, just to be a little unpredictable, give you a little bit of advantage in future negotiations. That's not enough. Well, also there's one other thing. He did confirm the pattern that people have seen, but now it's an unbroken pattern that when anybody comes for him, he counterpunches. Doesn't matter if it's a country, a network, an individual. 100% of the time, he counterpunches. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, that would be like a really good pattern to establish if you wanted to be the best negotiator in the world and negotiating on behalf of the United States. But you'd be so wrong. And you know why I know you're wrong? Let me show you. In this gut area, a lot of my guts are telling me that that's wrong. And I don't care about your brains and your logic and your thinking and all that stuff. Just
My
feel the
name
guts.
is not important.
Trust your guts. Okay. So yes, being predictable probably gives them at least predictable in this one sense, always hitting back on the punch. Probably makes it easier to negotiate even in international affairs because people say, Jesus fucking Christ, this guy will counterpunch anyone. This guy will counterpunch a pregnant woman, at least if she's in the cage match. He doesn't come after normal citizens. But I think you'd agree that Mika and Joe are rich and good looking and successful and they've got a lot going for them. He'll go after people like that. Sure. Let's see what else. I also, you might say people like the fact that when he tweets like this, you know that he's not being filtered. You know that the president is not being managed by other people. If anything ever told you that he is his own person, it's this tweet. But of course that's terrible because, as I've been told for the last 2 years, he's actually Hitler. So the last thing you want is for Hitler to be running the presidency like a president. You want everybody to be managing him, telling him what to say, shading everything so it's just right, and nobody gets upset. Of course you would. You wouldn't want him to be out like leading and stuff. He's got all this, this Hitler instinct in him. The last thing you want is for some honest conversation with the people he's leading. You don't want that. You want him to be more managed. So, can't say that's good. Now, he is probably the most entertaining president we've ever had, but that's not a good enough reason to destroy civilization, I think. And he's been amazing for the ratings of the entire news industry.
Human shields.
And, that's a pretty big industry. And I think that sounds like a good thing, and it's good for jobs and stuff. But you're not going to destroy civilization just to make jobs better in the media industry and help them. That's not a good thing. And sure, every citizen in the United States has learned more about their government and more about the citizens in their country and more about understanding each other than we ever have in any 2 years of life. But that's not again, it's not a good reason to, destroy civilization with techniques, which is what he's doing. Now, I know some people said, oh, he's doing these tweets because he's controlling the news cycle. And he had some things that he wanted to do, such as implement his country ban on immigration, and he's getting some bad news in healthcare, and it just happened to be, and I'm going to call this a coincidence, right? Because we know that he does these tweets without thinking about it. He just sort of, it's almost like a, the lizard part of his brain is moving his fingers, and he's not even using the brain part. I mean, we all know that, right? It's not like it's planned in some way. Now, granted, he has a 2-year consistent record of tweeting at exactly the right time to control the news cycle and exactly the way it has. But sometimes the blind squirrel finds a nut, right? Sometimes the blind squirrel finds 2 nuts. It's going to happen. There's a lot of blind squirrels. There's a lot of nuts. Some blind squirrel's going to find 2 nuts. And sometimes, and I think this is just common sense, a blind squirrel will find 1,000 nuts in a row. He'll find more nuts than the squirrel that's got good sight and an army of nut-finding helpers. Sometimes, just by coincidence, coincidence just happen. So the fact that this would have been just the perfect time to totally send the media down the rabbit hole of no consequence whatsoever, while also sending a signal that he can't be screwed with, ever, and also putting the fear into the media because he's just taken down CNN, who no longer talks about Russia the same way they used to. Maybe some of those things are good. But here's the problem. It has come to my attention that at least a third of the country doesn't know that he's doing this with his tongue in his cheek and that he knows that it's funny. I don't think most people would figure that out. And I rack that up a little bit to the New York effect. Part of what makes things funny if you're from New York is the horribleness of it, the inappropriateness. So it's the inappropriate part that makes it funny, that makes it entertaining, that makes it worth doing. It's the inappropriate. So when I see the president doing inappropriate things, I say to myself, well, there's a guy from New York talking. So I think we can conclude that it would be time to sell all your stocks, because that kind of a tweet from our president surely will destroy the country and everything you love. The fact that you see no signs of that, nor can you logically imagine any way that that could happen in the context of a president who always does things like this and we're totally used to it. The fact that you can't imagine the path that it could happen doesn't change the fact, remember, your brains are down here, all in your guts. If your brains are telling you, if your gut brains are telling you that this is going to destroy civilization, listen to that. That's all I have to say for today. I'll talk to you later, if there is a later. I know, probably the phones will go dead any minute now after that tweet. I don't know what the rest of the day looks like, but stay alive. Just stay alive. And if somebody comes for you, because civilization is breaking down, and they've got a gun and they want to steal the last food that you have in your house, as you're trying to protect your family during this total breakdown of civilization, you open the door and you look at that person who wants your food and you say, "Die." I said no. Good morning, everyone. It's another newsful day. It never gets old.
Fulfilled.
So, you guys saw the new Trump tweet. So Trump tweeted again and he used his new catchphrase, "I said no," which I loved from the moment I saw it. I hope we see more of that. It's better than sad. Bad Joe, I said no. Everybody's tweeting that to you today. So once again, one of the strange things about my experience in the past year is that some of you have the experience where you wake up and you read the news, right? And you say, oh, this is me, and now I'm reading the news, and the news is about other people. But every now and then I wake up and I read the news, and I'm just drinking my coffee, and the news is about me. I hate that. So it turns out that PolitiFact has decided to lump me in with the false flag conspiracy theorists. And I want to show you how cleverly they do it. So if you check PolitiFact, it says conspiracy claims that the Syrian gas attack was false flag or unproven. Now I want you to read it. Let's see. Oh, so this was published on April 7th originally, it looks like. When I first said that the original gas attack in Syria was sketchy. So if you read what they did to me, they talked about what I said.
Not important.
And then they talked about what InfoWars said and what Mike Cernovich said and what other people said. And then they lumped me in with them. Now, what I've said is that the news as we've received it is not credible. What others have said is that it was a false flag attack. And I've never said that. I've just said it doesn't look like a credible story. And I give my reasons why it doesn't look credible. Now, anybody can look at my reasons, and they can judge them for themselves. I'm not making a claim about something that I don't know.